thank you so much for joining Cherith and I. We'll just kind of introduce ourselves. So I'll go ahead and go. Well, I'm Coretta Collins, CC the NP of Confessions of a Nurse Practitioner. That's the blog that I have at www.ccthenp. But I am a nurse practitioner specializing in oncology and hematology. So I take care of patients with cancer and blood disease. And I am also a writer and published author, which is the reason for this meeting tonight. We're so excited about that. And I also am a wife and have 3 kids, 10, 8, and 4 going on 14. And so that's just a little bit about me. So you go ahead, Cherith. I'll let you.
Okay. I am Cherith Fluker, and I run the blog What Cherith Thinks. Been blogging almost a year now, and if any of you caught my IGTV today, Coretta didn't say this, but we kind of have a little bit of history. It's kind of funny the way we met, and I won't go into a whole bunch of details on that, but it's just exciting to see our story kind of unfold. It's been, just very interesting how everything has worked. I'm not someone who believes in happenstance, so I believe that every single thing that has happened that has brought us together, Coretta, has happened for a reason, and I don't know what's next for us, but I am excited about it. I have a husband, and I have 2 grown children. My youngest is 18, and she reminds me all the time that she's grown, except for today when she was in the line to get her 2nd vaccine, and they asked her some questions, and she was like, "Mama, come here." So it's funny how she decides when she is grown and when she is not. So that's very funny, but yeah, so me too. I'm an educator, and I also, I guess I am considered a full-fledged writer now since we are in print. I am so excited about that, but we can just keep moving and talk about why we're here tonight.
Yes, so we are here. So today, and you guys may have seen, because Cherith and I both have been kind of talking it up and talking about it leading up until this day, but today is the official release date of the latest Chicken Soup for the Soul installment. So I don't know how many of you grew up on Chicken Soup for the Soul. They've been around forever, but I fell in love with these books at an early age, and so we're just so excited to now be a part, to be published in one. So that's what I have, a copy of the book here. But the latest installment is Chicken Soup for the Soul, I'm Speaking Now. And what they did that was so awesome is they are sharing Black women's stories. So if you know a little bit about how Chicken Soup for the Soul works, they usually select or have about 101 stories and poems. And our book has 101 stories, and I think it has 12 poems in it also, but our stories were chosen from thousands of submissions to be published within the latest book. So that comes out today officially. And so Cherith and I, it was just so ironic that we knew each other, but we didn't know.
No idea.
Yeah, we had no idea that either of us had submitted a story. So we can kind of talk a little bit about how that came to be. You go ahead.
It's so funny because we're both live in the Birmingham area, and we had kind of crossed paths in blog groups together and been in some of the same Facebook support groups and things like that. But it was so funny because when I finally was able to announce that I was in the book, the first thing I wanted to do was to take to social media to let everyone know because I was so excited. And just a couple of days later after I posted, Coretta was like, "Wait, you're in that book?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I am too." I was like, "No way." I just thought it was so funny because neither one of us, had any clue that we were submitting stories or we had been selected. I mean, I had flipped through the book, but there's a lot of stories in the book and I hadn't gotten to hers yet. So it was just, again, one of those happenstance things that I don't believe in. Like I said, there's a reason that we're both connected yet again. So yeah, it was very funny, exciting, all of that.
Yes, because Cherith and I are both a member of a writing group called CJ Write. That is really supportive and that we love and are active in. So we were like, oh my goodness, just imagine. But the way that I actually found out about it was through my cousin. And she had, she had somehow gotten the information and she sent it to me. She was like, hey, I think you might be interested in submitting a story. I think you should check it out. So I was like, okay, because I didn't know anything about it. And of course, I was like, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Yeah, I love Chicken Soup for the Soul. And to find out they were doing one where they were sharing, Black women's stories about life and our journey and just some of our experiences, that was like really intriguing and exciting to me. So I decided, I was like, I'm gonna just take a chance. So she sent me the info, and then I just kind of went onto their website and kind of wanted to make sure that I could do it, because I have a lot going on, but I'm so glad that I did. So I submitted the story, and then from there, I wasn't sure, I kind of knew, I was like, well, it'd be great if my story gets chosen. But at the same time, I was already kind of like, I know there are going to be like lots of like writers submitting stuff, or just people who may not even be consider themselves a writer, but have, stories to share that would fit the bill for what they were looking for. So I wasn't sure. When I got that email saying that I had made it through like the first round of submissions, I immediately like text her like, oh my goodness, look, I made it through the first round. Let's see what happens next. And then when I got that last email, I was like, I was stunned. So I immediately talked to her and my husband, and it was like on from there. I've been so excited ever since.
So when I found out about it, it was through an email. When I started my blog, I just kind of started reaching out to all different types of publications to be able to, looking for places to guest blog and write. And I came across that, and like you, I was just like, I don't know, I'll give it a try. And I didn't tell a lot of people, and I didn't because I didn't want to be disappointed if it didn't get chosen. So I kind of kept it to myself. I didn't even really tell my family that I was submitting it. And the process was a little bit lengthy. I guess that's probably normal. I haven't submitted before, but I had kind of forgotten about it when I got the email that I made it through the first round. So like you, I was really excited then. But when I got that first one, I did kind of start telling other people that, I had submitted, because I was like, okay, this may turn into something. But then I think it was even several weeks after we got that first round email that before it became official. So it was a long process, but it was good. And this is a story that the essay that I submitted is something that I had written a while back, but it was something that I didn't know where it quite fit on my blog. So I was just kind of holding on to it. And so I kind of feel like it was meant for this book, because I feel like it goes so well with the stories that are in the book and with the stories that are in the section where my essay is. So I feel like, I didn't know what I was writing it for at the time, but now I do.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So just to tell you guys a little bit more about the book. So as I mentioned earlier, it has 101 stories, 12 poems, all written by Black women. Content ranges from, funny to serious, covers topics, everything from us sharing our dreams, our hopes, to our fears and our challenges. And it has 11 chapters. So, Cherith, you want to kind of tell about the chapters?
Yeah, so each story is kind of grouped or all the stories are grouped into 11 chapters, like Coretta was saying, and each of them have something to do with, with these topics. So there's the shoulders we stand on, where we come from, everyday struggles, stand up and speak out, raising our children, family and food for the soul, taking care of me, which is my favorite, sisters, friends, loving Black men, identity and roots, and self-discovery. There's just, it's a wide range. And like Coretta was saying, there are stories that are funny. You will get all the feels when you read these stories, because there are some that are funny. There are some that are relatable. There are some that will have you in tears because it hits home. There are just, so many. I think there's something for everyone. I don't think that this is something that just women can read. I think that everyone can learn something, or can, have their eyes open from a story or two in here. And another thing, Coretta, that I wanted to point out is at the beginning of each person's story, there's a quote, and those quotes were chosen by the editors of the book. And I think it's just awesome because, you know, you can tell that they really tried to pick quotes that were really related to what the story was about. And it just is a really great introduction to each of the stories. So that's one thing that I really loved about it, is how it just, I don't know, it was just, everything just fit together so well. And I'm glad, so glad to be a part of the project, because I just feel like it is, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, I'm not even done reading all of them, because some of them I'll read them twice just because it's got that aha aspect, or that, you know, it's just, they're really good. And I have told everyone that I've talked to that has told me that they purchased one, I can't wait for you to tell me which one is your favorite, because there are so many that are so good. I mean, there are so many that are like, that's me, or that's a friend, or I've, you know, somebody that I know has gone through that, or it's just, I mean, it's a great book.
It is. It really is. And going back to what you were saying about those quotes, I remember when because the way they did it, guys, just part of the process, when you submit your story and they've chosen it, then, you know, and after the editing process, then they sent it back to us, what was, you know, the finished copy, and they included this quote before our story that they felt related. And the quote is by some Black woman. And they asked for our input. It's like, see what you think about your quote. If you don't like your quote, you could submit, you know, a different one, or tell us what you think. But when I saw my quote, I was like, oh, that's perfect. No, I'm not changing that at all. Yes. And so then you can tell, like, the process, the thought process behind it was really, really, you know, just awesome. So their quotes from, you know, Ruby Dee to Maya Angelou, Michelle Obama, Beyonce herself. Yes. So, you know, so there are those quotes that kind of at the heading of the book. And
I'm just like, oh, my name is up in here with Iyanla and all these.
I know. I was like, yes. So yes, it's pretty exciting. And I would like to point out, you know, even though we're talking about how this book is, you know, it's written by Black women and it's telling our stories, but I would just like to say that this book is really for all women, like all women, and, you know, even men, you can relate. And I actually would like to encourage non-Black women to read it, because especially, like, you know, those of us who have non-white friends who are interested in kind of knowing more about us and, you know, behind the scenes and kind of what it's like to be a Black woman. This book sheds a lot of light into that, and it shows a lot of different perspectives that I think all women could appreciate. Because, you know, sometimes I'm talking to my friends, you know, and it's like they may not know what I'm talking about, but to see it from or they only know my perspective, and you can kind of think like, oh, maybe that's just her. But to see it coming from other women can kind of open up your mind some.
Yes, great conversation starters. I was talking to a friend of mine who is a white lady, and we were talking about the book, and she was just saying how this would be, you know, a great way for her to have conversations with other, you know, people who may not be as open-minded, or who, like you said, may think that that's just an isolated incident. Like, it's just a great way to get conversations started about just experiences that Black people have to go through, that is sometimes difficult for us to articulate, because it's us. And, you know, if you're like me, then, you know, sometimes it's like you're tired of talking about the same thing over and over, and it's just nice to be able to be like, read the story on page blah blah blah, and then you'll
that's right. That's right.
It. So
absolutely,
you know, we can kind of segue into like talking about our stories. Even when I read your story, I was like, I have like 3 friends that I can share this story with, because I have friends in the medical profession who have had that very same experience that, you know, that you described. And so, you know, I just think it's awesome. It was one of those where I was nodding my head, because I've heard the story so many times from people. So we want to talk about yours for just a little bit.
Yeah. So my story, not to give too much away, but it is in the everyday struggles section. That's what one of the chapters in the book. And I'm basically sharing, like, as I shared at the beginning, I am a nurse practitioner, and I specialize in cancer care and blood diseases. So that's the patient population who I care for. And the story kind of discusses some of my experiences with having encountered patients who were white, who did not want to be cared for by a Black clinician or a healthcare provider. And, you know, just kind of the irony of that, because here, and these are, you know, people with cancer diagnosis. So this is clearly a very, you know, it can be very life-threatening, important illness. But because of my race, you don't want to accept my help. So that's kind of the backdrop of my story and what I'm talking about there. And the name of it is, you know, equipped, qualified, and Black. So the whole premise is the idea, like, here I am, you know, educated, qualified, able to do this job, here to serve. This is what I'm passionate about, what I'm gifted in. I know what I'm doing, you know, so that kind of thing. And yet, besides all that, all you can see is the color of my skin and decide that I'm not good enough to care for you. And that is, unfortunately, one of the everyday struggles of many Black people, you know, and Black women in particular, in not just healthcare, but, you know, education or engineering, whatever the case is. And so that's kind of some insight to my story that's within the everyday struggle section. And that section, it talks about, you know, a variety of different experiences that that kind of cover or deal with just the struggle of being a Black woman or a Black person in America. Some of the things that other people take for granted, or you may not even think about, you know, because it's just as simple as 1, 2, 3 for you. We have to think about it.
So, and like I said, Coretta, when I read yours, I could think of like at least 4 other friends immediately who had told me that they had similar experiences. And to just think about somebody that has, you know, both of us having had moms to pass away from cancer, to think about when you're at, you know, at that point in your life and you want to refuse the help just because you're Black, that's unthinkable.
It really is.
Yeah.
And so, again, yeah, going into your story, I was like, okay, so I'm going to admit. So the section Raising Our Children, that's a whole chapter in this book. And that's where Cherith's story is. And she's going to tell you about her story.
Well,
but that section, it gives me like trepidation. It's been the section that I have like shied away from the most, because I don't want to deal with it to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, my kids are still pretty young. Like, my oldest is 10, and I'm trying to like keep him as young as I can for as long as I can. But we're already, of course, having to talk about things that come up. And I just know that the older they get, the more I'm going to have to talk about it.
Yeah.
The more risk there is, the more in their face, you know, being confronted with some of the things that happen. And it's just,
yeah, it is tough. Now, and I actually thought that my story would have been in the raising our children, but it's actually in the loving Black men section.
That's right.
It's actually in the loving Black men, which same kind of thing. So my story was about raising a Black son in this world, and I wrote it like right after the George Floyd murder. And it was just one of those things where, like I said, we have had this conversation or have these conversations over and over and over. And you would think that it would be enough. But I said, you know, we've heard this story a zillion times, but my story hasn't been heard. So I wanted to tell, you know, my story, my perspective. So I have a son. He is 20 now. And to just think about him and someone being threatened by him, it breaks my heart, because I know that he is the most gentle, most caring, but nobody, you know, and I say nobody, people who have that hate in their hearts, they don't care. They don't care that he is sweet and gentle. And I wrote that because I wrote the story because I'm like, we have to spend so much time defending and proving that our son is, or that our Black men, I would say, are sweet, or, you know, and if they're not, it's okay if they're not, you know, you still don't need to treat them a certain way. But, you know, you are lucky that you said your oldest is 10, and you have not I had to have these conversations early. And I think that a lot of people
I've had to have some, but
my son is such a straight and narrow kind of person. He's a, you know, good grades kind of person. I think they think that we don't have to endure these things, but we certainly do. Because, you know, I live in Pell City, Alabama. You know, I said Pell City knows Jordan, but the world doesn't know Jordan. Auburn, he's at Auburn right now. Auburn doesn't know Jordan. So I feel like, you know, we have to just, it's like 51st dates. We have to start all over, you know, proving he's a good student. He does this, he does that. And it's just so exhausting. And I don't think that people really think about it. So I just, you know, I think that, you know, I just want to, in my story, just kind of give a little bit of insight into what I know that lots of Black moms are doing on a regular basis, and what you need to start doing right now, because our world is not getting any more understanding about our Black men at all. And so we have to continue to have these conversations. And like you said, this book is for ages and ages. We've been having to, you know, have these conversations with our son. It is difficult. I mean, it's also getting that way with our girls too. I need to write a part 2, raising Black women in this world, because, you know, it's the same thing. It's just, you know, constantly having to prove that they're, you know, enough, or prove that they're good, or prove they're not going to hurt you. And like I said at the end of my story, and I'll say this not to tell too much, even if they're not, even if they do decide to stray away from the straight and narrow, even if they do break the law, even if they do, they don't deserve to be shot and killed. You know, give us an opportunity to do what we do as parents, and to try to get them back on the right track. But it's just, you know, it was, like I said, I wrote that. I couldn't figure out how to fit it into my blog, because my blog is about self-care, and I didn't really want something so heavy on the blog. And I just kept this piece for whatever reason. And when I saw the opportunity to submit for this book, I definitely wanted to submit it, because I felt like it was needed, and it was the platform for this essay to appear. So I'm glad that I had a way to share it, and I hope that y'all enjoy it when you read it. So
yes, absolutely, because it's just so yeah, so that's right. So yours, it's in the loving our Black men. That's right.
Yes.
Because in both of those I was like,
And again, well, and it was one of those things where it seemed like it should have gone into but when it went into that one, I said, you know what, that is a more appropriate place, because we need to talk about it. It does go more with loving our Black men. I feel like our Black men are the group that, as a whole, that we're always, you know, having to defend, having to take up for, and you know, so I just felt like that just shows too how much the editors put thought into it. I probably would have thrown it into the raising children, and it probably could fit there, but I felt like the Loving Black Men section was a perfect place for it to go. So even if it is in the back of the book, because that's what my kids, they said, Mama, why are you in the back of the book? I'm like, just read the story.
I would say though, because within that section, I think, and I don't know, you know, I'm not the editor, but I think part of the reason maybe why it was at the back of the book is it was more hope in that section.
Yeah.
You know, like some of those stories, it's
some
like
were heavy in the beginning. You're right. Like I said, I was crying, you know, like the ones at the beginning, like there's some just talking about, you know, there was one in particular, and I won't even tell too much of it, but, you know, a little girl was like in 3rd grade, or, you know, elementary school, and she said that her white friend wouldn't even learn her name, and I say friend, another white student wouldn't even learn her name, because he said, I'm just going to call you what you are, and he just continued to call her Black girl. Hey, Black girl. That's 3rd grade. I mean, 3rd grade is just crazy. So
I know you're talking about.
You're going to have all of the emotions throughout this book, and I'll read one, I'd be crying, and then I'd flip over another few, you know, stories, and I'd be laughing about something, or there was some experience that somebody had with their grandmother, and it made me think about an experience that I had with my grandmother, and especially, you know, I lost my mom just last year, so when people wrote stories about their moms, of course, that was really hard for me, because I could relate to that. So I mean, y'all, it is really good. If I was not in this book, I would still own this book because
Oh,
it is.
absolutely.
I would buy it because it is so good. It's something that I want my daughter to read. I'll read with her. We'll have discussions about things, especially as she gets ready to go off to college. Some of these stories were just appropriate for her. You know, again, my kids know, I mean, the Pill City knows them, but the rest of the world doesn't. So I don't want them to go in, go out into the world with this, naive attitude and just thinking that everybody is here for them or loves them or whatever, however the kids say it this week. But it's really good.
So I see a comment. It caught my eye. Somebody said, "So I need to talk to my therapist while I read, huh?"
This book can kind of be your therapist, Kim. That's my cousin, hey Kim. But yes, I mean, because it is good. Some of these, like I said, are just so.
And some of them even were kind of like, as a Black woman, because like we all, like I said, it's going to be different perspectives and different experiences, which is one of the things that makes it so great. But some of them were kind of like, even like, had me like, whoa, wow.
Yeah.
There's one, and I don't want to say too much, but I mean, you guys will know it when you see it. But it was a lady sharing about, so she's in an interracial marriage. So it's a Black woman married to a white man, and automatically people, society tends to assume that the child is going to look more like the Black parent or pull most of those genes, just based on the skin tone and everything, or make it obvious where you can tell like, oh, that's an interracial baby. But in this lady's case, her baby was born, pale skin, blue eyes. And she was shopping in the store, and it just talks about how, she just goes on to say, like, people basically, they treated her like she was the nanny. They didn't believe it was her baby. They ended up, after it's all said and done, actually trying to like take the baby from her. And so it got so extreme so she actually went and got a passport picture taken, like got an official passport of she and her child so that she could have proof within, the United States that it was her baby, even though because the baby didn't look like it could be hers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that blew my mind.
Yeah, there were a couple of stories like that for me that was just like, even being a Black woman for 40 years, there were still some stories in there that were like, wow, like I thought I experienced it all, seen it all, because there are some things that you're going to be like another one of those stories, and then there are going to be things that you're going to be like, wow, it's unbelievable. One of my favorite sections, and without going into a whole lot of detail about the section, is that Taking Care of Me. If you guys have followed me on my blog, I'm on this self-care kick, and there's a section on there, Taking Care of Me, and it is good, and it is just about, finding peace, and how as Black women, we just, have put onto ourselves how we have to be everything for everybody. And so there were some stories in there that just kind of confirm some of the things that I have, been writing about too. So, I mean, very, very relatable. There's just so many. Which section was your favorite, Coretta?
Look, speaking of that Taking Care of Me section, because you and I have talked about how I need to do better in that area, but it was a story in that section that talked about napping. She started embracing it and was like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. I was like, ooh, get back to that. Back to that. But yeah, so I did like that section. I also really enjoyed the sisters and friends.
Yes.
Section. Yeah, that was a really good section.
That was
it also made
section. I didn't do a lot of crying.
And it made me think about, those dynamic relationships that we have with somebody said, what's a nap? I know. That's what I said. I was like, I gotta learn, I gotta get on track here. But yeah, just those relationships that we have with our close friends and our aunts and our, we have with our parents, because there's something, I feel like there's something different and unique about the relationships like that Black women have with their aunts or like some of their cousins, just kind of on down to the nitty gritty about it. And so I for sure enjoyed that section. And then to stand up and speak out.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It was, yeah, bold. I like that boldness.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say about the sisters and friends section, I thought when I was reading it, I thought about me and some of the relationships that I have with my friends. And I think about my children when they were younger. I have a friend that a mutual friend of ours, actually, Coretta.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's on here, so I won't call her out because I don't know if she is. But I have a friend that, because she has been in my life for so long, is one of my college friends. I can remember my kids finding out, and I say finding out, realizing that the friend was not their aunt. Like she was, like, they thought it was their, because and that just showed to me like the beauty of our relationship. Like they thought like that was blood. They were like, wait, like I knew that Granny wasn't her mom, but I thought that was your sister. I'm like, because y'all are like sisters. I'm like, yeah, that's just,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So funny. I actually just had that conversation with my son today before my husband took him to baseball practice. Because he texted one of my friends, and then it made him, he was like, so Mama, why do I have a Tiki, a TK, and a T Nessa? And so he was like, and I was having text, and he was like, so I know TK is really your cousin, right? And I was like, yes. And he's like, T Nessa is really your cousin too, right? And he's like, but Tiki is not really your cousin. I was like, no, she's not.
It confuses them.
but
I think that just speaks volumes to how we love hard and how we just, it's just, our relationships are so meaningful to us, and we cultivate those relationships just like it's, just like it's a real blood relationship.
It's a real blood. That's right.
I'm like, friends, just as close as I am with my family. So I think that's great. Coretta, one last thing, I guess, so that we don't keep people too long, but
yes,
we want to talk about how they can find the book.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about how you can find the book. Of course, so on my end, you can find the book on my website, and that's ccthenp.com, www.ccthenp.com. I have it there. It's listed for sale. If you purchase it on the website, I am more than happy to sign it, and I'll get it shipped to you. So you can find it there, like I said, www.ccthenp. You can get it. And then Cherith, your way is a little different.
Yeah, so you can just go. There's actually a link in my Instagram bio. So if you'll go up to my link in my profile, there's a link there, and it's the first thing that's listed there. It'll have the title of the book, and you can purchase it there through Amazon. But if you use that link, then I get a little kickback. So use that link in my bio. I would appreciate that very much.
Yes. So those are the two ways we want you to find it. Okay.
But it's everywhere, because I looked before I jumped on just to make sure that you knew, because my thing is I want you to have a book. I don't care where you get it from, because it is so good, and I think that
they are available.
It is. I mean, it is probably, I have several Chicken Soup for the Soul books. I have some that I had when, for the college students. I mean, these books have been around for so long. I have the Teenager Soul that I bought for my, my kids and everything. But this, y'all, seriously has been my favorite. And like I said, if my name was nowhere in this book, I would still own this book, because it is just that good. It is so good.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. And I mean,
it helps me knowing that I know that they're real stories, because I know someone that wrote it. I know my story is genuine and real. And to know that these are real experiences from real women, it just makes it that much more special for me. So
absolutely. I see Tasha says, how do we get a double-sided copy? We can make that happen.
Yeah, we can. Yes, especially since the world is opening back up now. We might have to arrange something so we can see you. I need to see you anyway, Tasha.
I know. Yes. So we definitely can make that happen. We can make that happen. Yes. But yeah, and I did. It is on my Instagram as well, and the link is within my profile, so you definitely can go there. But I'm telling you, when you go to the stores, you're gonna see this book. We had like this little meet and greet. What was it, last week, Cherith? I think where we were able to kind of meet some of the other contributors, and the editors were on there, so that was really exciting.
And I mean,
Yes, and there are like just so many talented writers. And what I like about it at the end of the book, they have this meet our contributors section. And so everybody who has a story within it, there's a little, it's a brief bio that kind of tells about the person. Because if you're like me, depending upon the story you read, you're like, ooh, that's intriguing. You want to know more about the person who wrote it. So I was able to go back there and you can read more, and for most of them it also tells you like how you can find them or what to look for 'em. And it was cool putting like names with faces on the meetup that we had.
Yes, especially if you had read the story, you just kind of wanted to see, so you could be like, "Oh, girl," like
Yes,
it was very nice. I love doing that. It's been
and I love that what you guys should also relate to is the span of contributors was so broad.
very.
Like from like, young women to like, the grandmama's baby was writing and it's the great grandmamas, and so you get all of that, just history and inspiration, and it's a lot that was brought to the table. And there's even like a mother-daughter duo who we met on the meetup.
I just saw someone that said, "Do they need popcorn? You need all of it. You'll need popcorn for some of it. You'll need wine for some of it. You'll need tissues for some of it. You need all of it."
Right. Just have your little station with your supplies. You'll be good. Yes. And even though it can be like a quick read, because the stories are just so good and they're not like super long. So you can get through it, but I would say you probably are gonna want to digest it. I wouldn't necessarily.
Well, you'll want to do something like I started reading something, and I had to walk away. Like I would get so mad that I would want to put the book down for a little bit. So it'll just kind of depend, and it depends too on what kind of day you're having. Like, cause there's some days it's too heavy, but then I said they'll come back, and I think that kind of did a good job of balancing that too, because it would be like those ones that would be kind of heavy, and then there will be like a few lighthearted ones that would, make it. So it was a good balance of that, I think.
Yes. So, well, I don't know. I know we tried to follow along in there. We forgot to tell you guys if you had a question, to put it in the question box, but I think we answered most as we saw them.
Yeah.
And so,
this is fun, Coretta. This is fun. Thank you for encouraging me to do this, y'all. I said earlier, like, I don't normally go live because those of you who know me, I like to make sure to edit and make sure everything's just right. But this has been fun, and I appreciate you inviting me to do this with you.
Yes. Okay, wait a minute. I see Canessa saying, "Kay, I love the book club idea." What was the book club idea?
Oh, wait.
I missed the comment, I think.
I missed it too. I did this.
Okay, y'all don't have to tell me.
My second live in life, so I don't know what I'm doing. I just
right. So yes, that's what I was saying. I was like, this is like my first. Well, maybe unless you count like when I first got on Instagram and I kind of like stumbled on live and didn't know what I was doing.
Oh, somebody said a book club retreat. I really love that idea. Did you see that? I smell a book club retreat. I said, that really sounds fun.
Oh, girl, listen, I be having ideas brewing. So, yes, I can totally dig it. Oh, man. But, so we appreciate y'all being here because, Cherith and I were both like, we don't know what we doing on Instagram because y'all know I do like my confessions chats monthly, but I do that on Facebook, where I'm like, I think I know what I'm doing, and they even change stuff up on me. But Instagram's a little different, but this, I think we worked through it pretty good. It was
cool, and I want to make sure to remind you to see if you have an option to save it for later so that we can.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so guys, if you all need to leave, we appreciate you coming.
Yes.
I'm just going to try to figure out here to make sure we have saved this, or how we saved this.
I think maybe once you end it, it'll tell you or give you the option to save. But that's just my guess. I don't know.
Okay. Let's see. Because I also see this little camera over here.
So I'll press the camera and see what happens. Oh no, that's taking the camera off. That's just turning your camera off. So I think
okay.
that when you, I think that when you end it, it'll ask you if you want to save it.
We appreciate the hearts,
Yes,
guys.
thank you so much. I do appreciate it. Thank y'all so
Me
much.
too.
Y'all get the book and then let me know which one you like the best. I'm telling you.
Yes, we want to know what you think. And yes, we'll definitely, we'll have to talk. We'll talk more about it for real.
Yes. Y'all have a good night.
Good night, everybody. Over here like somebody's grandmama. So I see these like little
in the video, you'll see it. Thank you.
In the video?
When you end it. So I go ahead and hit the X and then it's going to give you the option to save it.
Okay.
Yes.
Ah.